In just 12 months, British motorists have experienced a 50% increase in the number of parking fines distributed by private companies. Analysis of driver and vehicle licensing agency data, that's the DVLA, shows that a whopping 2.7 million tickets were issued between April and June. That means that somebody is getting very, very rich. Howard Cox is the founder of the Fair Fuel campaign, and he joins me now. Howard, lovely to see you again.
Hello, Bev.
Now, I think we would all agree that parking safely and courteously is a very important aspect of driving a car, right? We all have to share the roads. I have a particular problem with these tickets because they are often the ones that you don't know you're being spied upon and you're about to get them. That's what's happening here, isn't it?
Absolutely right. I mean, of course, illegal parking and bad parking and unsafe parking, everyone condemns. And it's sad that people have to remind you of that by emailing you in or texting you. The simple fact is, I cannot believe there are a 50% increase or more people parking badly compared to last year. That's a huge number. You expect a fluctuation up or down. You very rarely see it go down, of course. But 50%, that's ridiculous. I had a bad experience recently. I regularly come up to London to do shows like yours and come up to see MPs. And I park my car at the station as normal. But the app that I normally use, which I use on my phone to say I'm parking there for £5.60 for the day, wasn't working. The app was down. So I put a sign on my dashboard on the top to clear, I want to pay, but I couldn't pay because your app was down. I came back to a £120 ticket.
Wow. It does not surprise me. And then what do you do? I have walked in those shoes, Howard. I have regularly had that happen to me. I've done the same thing. I spend a lot of time in my week challenging these tickets now.
Yes, and that's the problem. I did this. I've appealed against this. In the end, I hadn't had time to do it, so I paid the thing up within 28 days. I only paid £60. But I'm really aggrieved. And the problem was, I went to the actual railway station, the booth there, the tickets, but that was closed too. We were totally and utterly had no choice, and there was no. And I tried to appeal, and I did it within the 28 days, and I still haven't heard anything back. And this is the Wild West at the moment. These people at the moment are actually running these parking schemes, and it's totally and utterly unfair. And the police, the government, have in their power. About 3 or 4 years ago, there were new regulations put in place to make it fairer, better signage, better understanding, better communication. But the government don't seem to be actually enforcing it, nor the police.
It's not, like you say, Howard, it's not that these tickets are punishing necessarily bad parking. It's not even, as you say, necessarily punishing people who haven't bothered to pay. And we know those people exist. I always see them in London, not a million miles from where we are. They're often driving Lamborghinis and Ferraris, and they zoom around and they don't care. Because you know what? 120 quid doesn't matter to them. Yeah. They're not bothered. But for the likes of you and I, we're trying to do the right thing, and it feels like the system is working against us in order just to make profit for a company. It's also very much, though, like you say, it's about the technology. Somehow the rules have not kept up with the technology here, have they? Because some of these are these private car parks where there's just a camera spying on you.
Yes, it's right. And the signage is poor. And I'm sorry to say that I know a lot of people who are not, I don't know how to put it well, but let's put it this way. I've got a demented mother-in-law who actually, she's not quick on the uptake anymore, and she's 90 years of age, and she's got a little car that she drives, and she doesn't understand the signage either. It's not clear. The old days of just putting money into a slot seems to have gone. You need to have plastic or you need to have an app. That can't be fair either. And I think there is a correlation between that aspect and the fact that these fines have increased by 50%.
It's exactly that. And yet it feels like we are powerless to do anything about it, Howard, doesn't it? It's the increasing creep of tech when we were coming out of lockdowns and we're moving towards a cashless society. We're moving towards doing everything on your phone for convenience. This is a glimpse of our future. In some ways, I'm glad this story is happening because I hope it wakes people up to what we're dealing with now. But I'm just not sure what the solution is. We've got a lot of people saying we just have to We just have to obey. We just have to obey. Just work by the rules. And if you have to pay 120 quid, then tough.
But the point is, when it is confusing and you are not a lawbreaker, you're an honest, law-abiding driver and citizen, and you don't understand the process and you don't want to use the app because you can't do it, or there's bad Wi-Fi, or there's all these sorts of things are mitigating circumstances which are being ignored by the government. And the government, in answer to your question, Bev, I'm going to be writing to our all-party parliamentary group for FairFuelUK MPs to see if I can get some traction in government, and maybe we can ask a question on the floor of the House of Commons.
Good for you. Well, if you want some backup, Howard, just let me know. I'll put my boxing gloves on. I'd happily get involved in this. Let me give you a little story that happened to me the other day. Middle of nowhere, out in Buckinghamshire, nothing but farmers' fields. And there's this one field, car park, little sort of roughly tarmacked car park. We're going to an engagement party. And we park there. There's barely any Wi-Fi signal because it's in the middle of nowhere. But I managed to do my thing and I put the card details in and it takes 20 minutes and blah, blah, blah. We're late and it's a hot day. And I go into the engagement party and we think, yeah, we did it. You know, we paid it. What, I'm not quite sure what we're paying for. There's nothing here. We're not, you know, this is just a field. It's not being maintained particularly. And then I got a ticket for it. And of course, in the hurry of a hot day and waiting to rush to get to this party, I'd put the wrong car. So I'd put my other little car rather than my main car, you know, the one that my other half drives. So I had to then appeal it and they wouldn't let me off. They'd had their £14. It didn't matter that it was the wrong car, but they wouldn't let me off. It was a private company. I feel like this has been a bit of therapy for me, Howard Cox. I've clearly been desperate to have this conversation, but I think a lot of people probably share our frustration. So keep up the good work. What's your website that people can seek it out if they want to support the work that you're doing?
Please, yes, FairFuelUK.com, and I can get to MPs very quickly. I've got 1.7 million supporters. We've got 37 million drivers. I've still got a long way to go.
Well, it feels sometimes like you're a sole voice fighting for the motorist in an ever-changing world that, as you say, is keeping a lot of people, frankly, at home because it can be too difficult to leave the house in your car. So thank you so much, Howard Cox, there, founder of FairFuel UK.